This is the second in a series of videos on payroll looking at terminology. So these are some of the key terms that you need to understand for this unit. Gross pay, statutory deductions, voluntary deductions, taxable pay, net pay, employers' national insurance contributions, and employers' pension contribution. So let's have a look at each of these in turn. So gross pay is your headline salary, your annual salary. When you go for a job and it says, oh, it's £40,000 per annum, this is your gross pay. It is before any deductions have been taken. It might, in addition to that headline figure, include any overtime, bonuses or commission, but the key is it's before deductions. So you can see as well in the fourth bullet point, it could also include holiday pay, sick pay, maternity or paternity pay, right? So it's your total pay before any deductions. We then come on to statutory deductions. The word statute means the law. So these are deductions from your gross salary that are legally required. So you don't have to give any authorization, they're just going to happen. The first one is income tax. So income tax is deducted from your gross pay using the PAYE system. It's paid over to HMRC on your behalf. And you might be thinking, well, how does the employer know how much to take from me? Well, they will be given a tax code by HMRC for each employee, and that will determine how much tax has to be deducted and paid. So a common one at the moment is 1257L, which simply means that that person gets £12,570 of personal allowance, which basically means that the first £12,570 of their gross pay is not subject to tax. Right, you're not going to be examined on any of the detail, but sometimes it's just nice to have a bit more information. Once you go over the £12,570, then you start to be taxed at 20%. And then when you get up to an even higher amount, then that will switch to 40% and then to 45%. Another statutory deduction is your employee's national insurance contribution, which basically is just another tax. It has been linked to payments of benefits and pensions, but I think if we're honest, it all just goes into the melting pot to pay for whatever by the government alongside our income tax. This one is calculated using thresholds of income. And it is class 1 that is paid by the employee. So just looking at the current figure. So at the moment, you don't pay anything on your first £797 per month. You then pay 12% on everything between 797 and 4,189. And then you pay 2% on anything over that 4,189. They are monthly figures. Incidentally, national insurance contributions are just done every time you're paid using these sort of bands with thresholds of income. That differs from income tax, which is done on a cumulative basis. So that basically means if you perhaps didn't work for the first bit of the tax year and then started earning quite a lot towards the end, they would look at it as a whole for the year rather than just each individual pay packet. Another statutory deduction is a student loan. So if you went to university or you've taken out any other kind of student loan, then once you earn over a certain amount, and don't quote me on this, but I think it's around about £25,000 at the moment, then you start paying 9% of your pay over this amount back. So you start repaying the loan once you're earning over that certain threshold. And this will be again deducted at source and paid directly on your behalf to the student loan company. Pensions, another statutory deduction. Workplace pensions are now a legal requirement. Employees will be automatically enrolled, although they can opt out. There's a minimum contribution if they're in the scheme of 5% currently. And again, this will be deducted at source and paid over to the pension scheme administrator. As we'll see shortly, if the employee is in the scheme, then the employer also has to make a contribution. So all of those that we just looked at, income tax, national insurance for the employee, student loan deductions and pensions, were all statutory deductions. These differ from voluntary deductions where you have a choice. Your employer would need your written permission for these to be deducted from your gross pay. And this could include things like trade union fees. So that's very topical at the moment. We're seeing a lot of trade unions fighting for the rights of their workers, like the nurses and the rail workers, to name but two. So if you want to be part of a trade union, then you have to pay a subscription fee, and that can be deducted from your gross pay and paid over to them directly. Could include what's called payroll giving, which is sometimes abbreviated to GAYE, give as you earn. This is where you have given permission, in fact an instruction for your employer to take money out of your gross salary and pay that over to your chosen charity. Or it could be additional pension contributions. You might decide that you want to up your pension contributions from that required 5% and pay in a bit more. Again, this would be deducted from your gross and paid over to the pension scheme administrator on your behalf. Another thing to bear in mind is what's called taxable pay. So we started off by saying that gross pay was your total of all your income, including commissions and maternity pay or sick pay, or whatever it may be. But note that your tax payable is actually only calculated based on your taxable pay. Your taxable pay is in fact your gross minus any allowable deductions. So what are these allowable deductions? Well, they are things which are to be encouraged in the eyes of the government. And to encourage you to do that, they give you some tax relief. So basically what that means is if you were putting money into a pension or giving money to charity, then the gross amount of those contributions would be subtracted from your gross pay before your income tax is calculated. So you can see you're obviously going to end up paying less income tax. So in that way, you have got some tax relief to reward you for making these allowable deductions. We then come to net pay. So this is the magic number, the figure that you actually get to take home. So this will be your gross salary minus all deductions. Bear in mind that income tax may have been calculated on your taxable pay, but nonetheless, it is still subtracted from your gross, along with your employee national insurance contributions and any of those other things, trade unions, gifts to charities, pension contributions, whatever it may be, then you end up with your net pay. I'll just flick forward a couple of slides here to show you this example of a payslip. It's not a real person, so I'm not breaching confidentiality. So we can see this employee, Sally James, is being paid on a particular date. She has a national insurance number. Everyone has a unique national insurance number. And here she's getting paid a salary of £2,000 for the month. Now, this is quite a basic one. It's just one lot of £2,000, but she might have had overtime or commissions or any other salary payments would have been included here. It then says this period, so that means basically this month. So we're looking here at the 31st of March in a given year. Incidentally, the tax year runs from the 6th of April of any year through to the 5th of April of the following year. So by the time you get to the 31st of March, you're pretty close to the end of the tax year. You can see that highlighted down here. It's period number 12. It's the 12th month that she's being paid. She's got her tax code. So this is a slightly older example than what I was speaking about earlier. So the tax code here is 1250L, which means the first £12,500 of her money for the whole year would not have any tax deducted. We don't need to worry too much about the calculations. They've worked out that she needs to pay £176.72 of tax, £145 of national insurance. So if we do a quick calculation, 2,000 minus both of these deductions, so there's no further deductions here. Oh no, sorry, I tell a lie. We've got the pension of the employee, £74.40. So we just do a quick sum. So 2,000, take away 176.72, take away 145, take away £74.40 should give us our net pay figure, £1,603.88. So that's what Sally here can expect in her pay packet. The pay slip is also showing me year-to-date figures, YTD, year-to-date. So she's been paid £2,000 every month for 12 months, so she's got 24,000 altogether. And these are the total deductions that have come off her in total. You've also got shown on the pay slip the pension and the employer's national insurance. So the employer's pension contribution and the employer's national insurance contribution. Right, so they're not deductions, they are extras that her employer is having to pay. So if I just go back a moment, the employer's national insurance contribution, it is an extra expense to the business. It is a statutory payment. So if you are employing people, you have the privilege not only of paying their gross salary, it's an expense for your business, but in addition to that, it's 13.8% for anything over £737. Now again, don't worry about the figures too much, but it just gives you an idea of how expensive it is to employ people. Employers can benefit. There is what's called an employer allowance, which is where there is £4,000 available for them to subtract against their employer national insurance contributions. And then we have the employer pension contribution. So I touched on this earlier. The employee had to pay 5%. The employer has to pay 3%. They can pay more voluntarily. And all of this will be an extra expense for the employer. So just to remind you, that's those figures, the pension of the employer and the national insurance of the employer on that payslip.